So guys, my new player guide is going to be a little bit different. Most videos I've seen so far jump in straight away telling you what are the best weapons and the fastest ways to level up in the game. I will make videos like that in the future, but what I think is more important in a new player guide is explaining all the very basic fundamentals. Starting a new MMO can be very overwhelming. What does this stat do? What does that NPC do? What's this weird feature on my menu? And sometimes you can even get very confused as to what a certain word means, because not all MMOs are very consistent with their terminology for certain features, which is why the first section of this video will be, what the f does everything mean section. My mindset here is I want to help people understand the game without having to spend 100 hours playtime before they finally know what everything means. Then we will cover what the f do you even do in this game, how do we progress, how do I level up, and what content should I be doing. And then we'll explain what the hell is going on with gear and skills in this game, as it is pretty unique and it needs its own section. I will be making way more detailed and nitty-gritty guides in the future, particularly on what to do at endgame, so be sure to subscribe so you don't miss those videos when it do release. So what does everything mean? I think the first confusing thing you encounter in this game has to be assigning stats when you level up. So as you level up, you can assign stats in either strength, dexterity, wisdom, or perception. But what on earth do these stats even do, and how should you assign the stats? So strength increases max health, health regen, and also more melee and ranged damage. Dexterity increases attack speed, melee and ranged crit chance, melee, ranged and magic evasion chance. Wisdom increases max mana, mana regeneration, and reduces the cooldown duration. Perception basically increases the chance of everything, the chance to hit enemies, the chance for CCs to take effect, and also the duration of your buffs. There's also stat buffs when you hit certain thresholds. For instance, when you hit 30 strength, you get a max health bonus of an extra 750. And you can look at all of these stat bonuses by just hovering over the stat menu. But you're probably wondering, are any of these other stats any good? Because there's a lot of secondary stats in the game that also need explaining. For now, these are the most important basics that you need to understand. Firstly, you have a hit chance, a chance to hit stuff in the game that can be increased. There's also a chance to crit for more damage, and that bonus damage can be increased with the critical damage bonus stat. You have your melee, ranged and magic defense stat that obviously decreases the damage taken from both damage types. You have your evasion stats, increases the chance that you evade damage. You have attack speed, health and mana regen, cooldown reduction, and mana cost efficiency. And obviously there's a few other advanced things, but I wouldn't worry too much about that until you are min-maxing in the end game. For now, I wouldn't worry about it too much, again, until you are in the end game and really min-maxing your character. But the general recommendation is you want to get 30 dexterity first, then 30 strength, and then you put your last points into wisdom if you feel like you have mana issues with your build. If you don't feel like you have mana issues, then just dump strength to a max level, and then you're going to reassign everything to start min-maxing around what kind of build that you want. So what does everything on the menu mean, which by the way has quite a lot going on? The codex is basically your quest log. There are chapters here for the main storyline, and you can complete the side objectives. Then the exploration tab shows you where side quests are in particular zones. There's also a little tab to show where the book pages are that you have collected. You have the craft menu where you craft gear with resources. No professions are needed, you just go to the crafting NPC in capital towns and craft armor or weapons. They have little blue logos on the map, and it's fairly important that you keep your gear up to date while leveling, and you've most likely acquired all of the materials for crafting a lot of the gear just by playing the game. The equipment and enchanting menu is where you can level up your gear, and you should always do this because you can transfer XP from one piece of gear to a new, better piece. The lithograph book is a collection tab where you add your crafted items to. It destroys the item in the process, but gives you rewards like crafting materials, skill books, and new recipes to make better gear. This is something you focus more on at endgame. The cooking tab is like self-explanatory. You craft food to get food buffs. You have to be at a cooking fire to cook, and you can buy many of the materials from a sundries merchant. You may as well always have a food buff active along with the stellatites that increase weapon damage, And you always want to make sure that you have a world tree leaf so that your pet can heal you out of combat. You can also buy health potions called recovery crystals and make sure to put them on your bars and keybind them. You also do seem to get a lot of food rewards from just doing the main quest, so be sure to check your inventory to open them. The leveling log is a reward system that you pay for and the rewards you obtain by leveling in the game. And you probably got this when you got the early access, so just check it now and again to gain the rewards. Milestones are time-sensitive objectives for you to complete that give rewards. They sometimes also give unique title rewards. You want to check it now and again because you'll probably have loads of rewards on there that you can just claim that you didn't realise. The co-op dungeon menu is basically a dungeon finder, which is normally great for getting good gear upgrades. The party board is your pre-made group finder where people put up groups for all kinds of content in the open world or just to pre-make a dungeon group. The relationship menu is your friend list. Your feud menu is where you can assign someone in PvP that you don't like or you want to get revenge on so you can see them all the time in the open world. The ranking menu is pretty obvious, it's just a ranking of how good people are at doing stuff on your server. The morph menu is where you can choose the form of your sprint, glide and swim morphs. And honestly, that's pretty much all you need to know right now as a new player. But what the f should you actually be doing in this game? Well, first of all, you should play the game how you want and not let anyone tell you how to play the game, and you should play the game entirely at your own pace and do what you think is fun. That being said, for those who want a centre direction on what you're actually supposed to do in order to get max level, what you do is you do the main storyline, as this gives the most XP. But when you can no longer progress the main storyline, because you need to be a higher level, you do blue quests by going to see what you have in the exploration tab. You will also unlock more blue quests by discovering a new waypoint. You can see them on the map as a dark grey with a question mark on them. Ideally you want to do the highest level blue quests as possible for the best XP. You can also grind the dungeon finder. I would also recommend doing world events whenever they pop up, as they also give a lot of XP. What you can do is you can press the N key, and this basically brings up a mini quest log, and you can press the purple stars and it will show you the objectives for main and side quests on the map along with all other types of content. This is a good way to get your head around content and keep track of what you should be doing, and also just taking stuff off the mini map that you or the world map that you don't need to see anymore. The main reason this game can get so confusing is because everything has a different word for what we're used to. You know, the manage content tab or the codex is basically the quest log, and the exploration quests are basically your side quests. I think because everything has obviously been translated from Korean into English, the words are not necessarily the best options for MMO players to understand, because we're so used to other words being words for certain things, and it's kind of difficult to get your head around. But promise me I promise you that you will eventually get your head around it. Now, what do you do at endgame? Well, we're actually going to cover that in a separate video. So what's the deal with gear, and why is it very, very important to understand? So you have grey common gear, green uncommon gear, blue rare gear, and epic purple gear. The higher tier gear, the more stats that it has on it, and the higher that it can be leveled up. So obviously the end game goal is pretty obvious: get a full set of purple gear. You can obtain gear from quests and dungeons, but mostly you will be crafting it. There's also accessories like amulets, rings and belts to be mindful of. Since you can transfer the XP you invest into a green piece of gear, for example, into a new blue piece of gear and so on and so forth, you should always be leveling up your gear as much as you can. This requires gold, solent, and growth stones. Honestly, you basically obtain everything that you need to upgrade your gear just by playing the game. I don't think you really need to go out and farm it while you're leveling up. Just play the game normally and you're going to get all this stuff. You will need uncommon growth stones to upgrade green gear and rare growth stones to upgrade blue gear, etc, etc. You can actually craft rare armor growth stones with uncommon growth stones at the crafter, and the same goes for epic. You also have the dissolve menu in your inventory to gain crafting materials from pieces of gear that you no longer need. You can also extract the traits, basically extract the gear from gear pieces, also to reassign to a piece of gear later. Mainly while leveling, you don't have to min-max too much, you just want to focus on keeping your gear upgraded and obviously leveled up, You will proper nerd it up and min-max your gear with a crafting system at endgame, but early on I would recommend getting a full set of uncommon gear at least to replace that grey gear, because that's very easy to do. So what is the deal with skills? Well, first of all, you have active skills. You press a button and they do something. You have your defensive skill, which is kind of like a block ability, but it changes depending on weapon type, and they generally provide some kind of damage reduction or healing. And you also have passive skills. Every weapon type has its own set of active skills, passive skills, and one defensive skill. You can have 2 weapons equipped at once, obviously, and you can use both weapon type skills regardless of what weapon you are currently using. For instance, I can use the heal spells that I get from the one tree while I have my greatsword equipped. The top menu shows all of your skills that you've unlocked so far, and the bottom is what you have equipped currently on your bars, including your passives. You can get more slots for all the skills as you level up. And you also have the Guardian skill, which is basically a cooldown where a Guardian comes along and assists you with some kind of buff, and your form will most likely change. Now, skills can be upgraded to become more powerful and have faster cooldowns with skill growth books, which is basically just how gear upgrading works, and at level 6 the ability upgrades and goes back to level 1 and becomes a rare skill, and you will need rare skill books to continue progressing, and again you can use uncommon skill books to craft into rare skill books. It's very important to obviously keep your skills upgraded, particularly the ones that are obviously the most powerful. The skill specialization tab grants extra bonuses to individual abilities, and the weapon mastery tab is a linear talent tree to improve the stats of your weapon. Also, if you want to transfer all of the XP that you've invested into one skill into a different skill because you think it's better, then you can actually go to the swap menu and just transfer all of the XP. You just need a skill conversion book. Now, if you want to know what weapons to go for, really I don't want to sit here and just tell you what to go for. What I'd recommend is obviously doing your own research, do some forum research into tier lists and see what other really pro players and experienced players are saying are the best 2 weapon combinations for endgame PvP and PvE, and I recommend just going with that because it does take quite a while for your weapon to actually level up. So really you want to pick a weapon and just kind of stick to it pretty much early on. Rerolling honestly in this game doesn't seem to be incredibly friendly so far, but maybe that will change in the future. But anyway guys, hope you enjoyed the video. My name is MetaGoblin. Until my next video, ciao.